Hello, everyone, and welcome to Afternoon Tea. I hope you are having a super fantastic and amazing Friday afternoon. I feel like there's been a lot going on in the royal realm, and we definitely do have some stuff with obviously Harry and Meghan, the Epstein investigation, the Marius case, and Harry and Meghan's doc. And I feel like it's kind of funny. There's a couple instances this week, and I was like, wow, people do really watch and pay attention to Royal News Network, because I actually found an article that we shared on the members only live stream that has not been picked up by Newsweek and other places. We also have the Sun saying Meghan Markle's having a meltdown and seemingly as ever, maybe closing shop. Who knows? So much is happening. So, guys, we are going to get into all of it. But thank you so much for tuning in today. I feel like this has been a busy day for RNN, just for me. So I had a physical this morning. Pippa got groomed. So if she decides to come up, I'll show you guys her pretty girl haircut. But she is hanging out downstairs. And so, guys, welcome. And we are going to get into, let's say, all the craziness. And for the first bit, I do really want to talk about as ever. So, darn, and I forgot to bring something up here, but from a business perspective, and I know my mom was even asking me once, hey, Brittany, why do you were nitpicking so much Meghan Markle and as ever in this ad? And I explained to her, which is true, is that when it comes to, let's say, any sort of business, if you are going to run an ad campaign, you bring everybody in, you have endless discussions, nitpicking almost every aspect of the campaign. What color? What font? Is it centered here? Left? Right? Who's going to be in the ad? Who's over here? Who's over there? Why are we choosing this person, not that person? Like, what's the best messaging here? What's the tag? And, how does this fit into the larger campaign of X? And so many different facets of when it comes to a business and how you market, there are endless discussions that happen. And again, a fantastic counterexample is Siren by Sydney Sweeney. It is well marketed, well put together. I do have one of the products. I'm wearing one of the products. I have to give them high marks. I actually probably need to see if I can put it on Shopmy or something, because it is really, really good. And you see, and I just don't know, you two might get upset at me, but what I find really interesting here is just how great all of this is put together. You have the different identities, seductress, romantic, playful's launching next week. Comfy, I don't know when that's launching. I mean, this is a great tag from the heart, brains, and boobs of Sydney Sweeney. And this is just excellent marketing. And I do have to say, guys, I totally and completely forgot to bring it upstairs. But I do actually have, when the products came in, it had this cute little tag on it. And, I think it said like, rip me hard or something like that. Or says, take me out with passion or feeling or something. I can't quite remember what it was. But it plays into the cheekiness of the brand. And you don't have to like everything she does. You don't even have to like her as a person. Like, even if, let's say, I wasn't a fan of her as a person, having gotten her products, I would say, at least for the bra especially, I really, really like it. It's well done. It fits well, all these sorts of things. And so even if I wasn't a fan, I am converted because the product is good. And I can say a marketing campaign looks good. If you see a good marketing campaign, you recognize it. It's like, actually, somebody was talking about recently when it came to the Super Bowl that actually most of the ads were rather bad this year and they weren't as memorable. Because just a simple thing here, this is crazy, but a diamond is forever was created by a marketing team. That phrase was created by a marketing team. It was not something that we were saying here. It's something that we ended up, that became part of the national lexicon or international lexicon because of De Beers. And they were paying a marketing company to try to figure out how to market diamonds better in like the 1930s. And that's why we have a diamond is forever. So really good marketing campaigns can have a really, really good impact. And Meghan's is not that. It looks unbelievably sloppily put together every time. There is no clear strategy. There is no clear market. And there's no clear identity. And so as a consumer, it's just even hard to get into the brand because I'm like, why does this exist? She has yet to identify how her products fit the market. Again, to do the Sydney Sweeney comparison and just really simply here, to me, it's the identity she's created: comfy, seductress, romantic, and then the end one is playful. So the idea is that you can be one of these personalities, all three. You can choose which day you do. And that is actually very smart. We all can have an attachment to that idea. But Meghan Markle is very, very strange. And again, I hope this actually helps people if you are somebody interested in business, if you're a young person going to school for marketing, or if you work in a small business. This is how you look at things and think of the consumer and have real feedback. When I did my video earlier this week about Meghan Markle's dress, one of the things I talked about is like, you need to have real feedback. Real people go, I like this, I don't like this. And you don't take everything they share, because I get some comments on here about things I do. And I'm like, some things I take and I'm like, yes, I need to implement these. And some of these things I shuck out the door because they're not really that helpful. Not that you don't, you look at them, but you just kind of evaluate whether or not something's good. Meghan has no evaluation process. Like, it's apparent there's no evaluation, there's no quality control, there's no team going, do you really want to do that? Does this really make sense? How does this fit into the market? What are your, let's say, there was a fuzzy on my mic. How is this different than other things you can get at the grocery store? Because Meghan's big challenge is that all of her products are available in the grocery store for much less, except for the flour sprinkles, because nobody wants that. And we've seen everybody hates flour sprinkles, Meghan Markle. Just putting that out there. The flour sprinkle idea, it was a dumb idea. Let it go. Anyways, so she has these products, and she has a very obvious, clear competitor. And granted, of course, Sydney Sweeney's selling bras. There's a lot of bras, loungewear out there. So it's not like she's fighting. She is also fighting a big market. But Meghan's, I think, is so easily purchasable because a supermarket is available in every single, even little itty bitty towns have a supermarket that sells jam. And to go, let's say, and get a bra, you have to go to a department store, bigger store, box store, something like that. But this stuff is very, very readily available. And she has yet to do a single stinking thing to identify how her brand is unique, interesting, different than anything else you can get. She's not even marketing it as organic. She's not marketing it as, let's say, just from California. That would actually have been my suggestion, is you make such a big deal about being from California. Make sure everything is sourced from California. That would probably increase the prices, but also might generate interest. And so it just comes out very confusing. So let's look at, and this, guys, I want to say right now, Meghan Markle watches Royal News Network. Why? Because she actually did discount her bundles, which was what my suggestion was. If you remember, I've suggested if you're going to bundle things together, you got to give a discount. Now, I think it's a bit excessive to go, look, it's 15% cheaper. I feel like that's almost too on the nose. I think just a slice through, I mean, I get it. It's actually helping sales. So in some ways, I can't falter for that. But we have bundles now. Now, there's something very particular about these bundles. Number one, which I find sort of interesting, is that they contain basically products from her holiday collection that did not sell. And she's still struggling to move. Specifically, the trios. So let me see if I can pull up my Excel spreadsheet here real quick. Let's see. As ever, stock details. So the actual biggest thing she still had in stock were the fruit spreads. They were in the gift box. That was clocked at 137,000. And then the regular fruit spread trio was 44,000. So almost 45,000. So if you combine those two together, I mean, you're looking at, not good at math, 170, 180,000 pieces of product to sell. So those are contained within these three bundles, but they're not in the box. But Meghan, if they're not moving, Meghan can take them out of the special box, which is done, and put them elsewhere. What I also find very strange about this set in particular is that you get 3 honeys, which I find really bizarre. I was like, who needs that much honey? That's a lot of honey. So to me, it looks like more like trying to get rid of products. So if we looked at going back to this list, the honey duo, there were 24,000 of those, and the sage honey with honeycomb was 8,000. So let's say she had a little over 30,000. So at the most, the products, I mean, these, 20,000 maybe of these sets if she's going hardcore on this or not. And then the candles have also struggled to move. So this is all about moving product that's not moving. And so if we look at this one in particular, it's basically everything. It's basically everything she could possibly sell, except for she's not giving them the special box. I don't understand why. And again, I feel like 3 honeys is very, very excessive here. Let me know if somebody else thinks that's a lot. I think that's a lot. And so it's like the complete as ever pantry. I still hate that she doesn't capitalize the E in as ever. I just think that's so dumb. But my thought is why? Why do you need all these? And candles aren't even pantry items. And who goes through that much honey? I get honey every once in a while, but I'm not a big honey person. Like that's a lot of honey. Do you really need that much honey? And of course, this is all photoshopped together again. I think she should really spend some time and repicture. But to me, this looks like a panic move to try to bundle things together to get products to sell. So could Meghan be kind of trying to shuffle things out the door to close the brand and open it in different ways? Could definitely be a possibility. And then this is the weird one, the go-to hostess gift. So I find, and you guys will have to let me know. So I've been to people's houses. I usually don't have too many people to mine because mine's usually sort of messy, if I'm being quite honest. And I live kind of far out. I would actually have people over more, but I live about like 30 minutes from most of my friends. So it's sometimes harder to get people out my direction. But my question is, and you guys will have to let me know, who here needs a hostess gift? How often does anyone need a hostess gift? I'm asking as a serious question. They actually do have a feature now in YouTube where you can ask questions, but I'm in StreamYard. I'm not on YouTube. So maybe I'm unable to do that. But I'm really curious, how often does anybody need a quote unquote hostess gift? It's sort of mentioned this before. So maybe you're hearing it for the 5th time and find it annoying, but I find the angle of this is a hostess gift really bad for marketing. And to me, it signifies that number one, it's not good enough for me to consume because it's better to give it as a gift than for me to have it, which is it's sort of weird, but it's one of those things where it's like, I want to give this, I don't want to keep this. So that's kind of weird. And I also think that when it comes to a hostess gift, sometimes it's nice just to actually think of the person. Like, how often are you giving a hostess gift to somebody who you don't know? And do they like these things or do they not? It's just very, very, very strange to me. And it's not, I don't think, a good angle. I've said it a lot. Bev says here Japanese would be good market for a hostess gift. That makes sense. Yeah, different cultures, it might be better. But honestly, in the States, I just don't see a hostess gift being a thing. Maybe it was in the 50s. It really feels weird. Like Meghan Markle is totally living in the past, but also grifting off the present. It's really strange. And she's grifting off the past in a way where I don't really think she understands the past. And honestly, a hostess gift would be, let's say, maybe making something. Maybe I make cookies. I'd be more likely to bring food and stuff, which I mean, I guess this is, but who wants as a hostess gift flower sprinkles? I'm what are you supposed to do with that? And then if it's a gift, how is she boxing this to make it a gift so when it arrives at your house, you can immediately give it to whoever it is? Heather from the hood says, looks like a wedding shower gift. Like that could definitely be a possibility. I mean, a lot of people have said wine, which I feel like is typical. I would feel like it's more interesting, but it's just very I don't understand. I don't understand. It's so weird. Angela Dawn says Megan should sell pearls and vacuums as she's so obsessed with hostessing. Exactly. It's just doesn't seem natural to Megan. It doesn't seem natural to what we know. She doesn't host like her husband's family at all. She doesn't really even host her family except for her mom. And I know she's giving that. But, she says in the blurb here, a bundle designed for the moments when you want to arrive with something thoughtful but easy. I mean, a bottle of wine is easy. They sell even wine like shaped bags. So you just put the wine in it and like bring it. It's not hard. This is the kind of gift that always feels right, comforting without being fussy, generous without trying too hard. I mean, that's $132. So that's a lot. Most wine, an expensive-ish, you could say, bottle of wine for most people would be like $30. So like, you're already $100 over what most people would do. Like who would give this? Especially I feel like if it's a hosting gift, sometimes it's somebody you don't know well. So why are you spending $132 on somebody you don't know well? And something warm to pour, something sweet to pass around, a table that comes together beautifully almost on its own. Okay. How? I don't know. Whether it's a weekend visit, a last minute dinner invite, which means you would have to buy this and shelve this until you could take it, or a quiet afternoon with friends, this collection brings a little calm, a little sweetness, and a lot of intention. Like you just get the sense the woman is trying way, way, way too hard. She's trying so incredibly hard to make this work. And it's just a bunch of stuff. We just have here some spread, honey, flour sprinkles, and tea. Like you could get, again, those exact same products and spend $50 and actually get something that's local to the area. Like as somebody like me who suffers with a lot of allergies, I would much rather prefer local honey because that could help me with my allergies. And it's just such a bizarre angle to take. And then the last one is when the day slows sets. Small ritual to end the day, something warm on the table, something softly lit in the room. Like she tries so hard to make this stuff poetic. Like it's just freaking candles and some tea, Megan. And like none of this is like super fascinating. The set is designed for the quiet hours when the pace eases, the lights dim, and there's nowhere else you need to be. A candle lit, a cup of tea sipping, and a moment to let the day gently fade. Well, Megan's a mom. Most moms don't usually sometimes have that option to just kind of, and this is a bad picture. I actually think this is a horribly bad picture right here. This again looks like we're getting a lot of what I would argue are iPhone level pictures. Like these are no longer professional shots. These are like, that's out of focus. It's 100% out of focus. Like I understand that the T is the thing that needs to be in focus, but honestly, I would do a wide angle focus here to get everything in sharp detail. I think she did this with her iPhone. This also looks iPhone level. This looks like she did it herself. It's incredibly bizarre. It's unbelievably crazy to me that we're getting basically slop at this point. This is photoshopped together, of course. And we're getting crappy pictures. Like these are bad pictures. See, this is one of her original shots. You can see the crisp detail, very well done. And these are totally different. And yes, I know they're going with a soft backlighting or whatever, but it just seems really, really strange. And what's, I think, even stranger in a way here, and we'll move over, show this tad, is the wine. What has happened? She has not done a thing with the wine in forever. Now, she did something sort of recently with it, but it's like, for me, if I was marketing, I don't really drink wine. Not really an alcohol person. If you are, like, no issues whatsoever. But what I think is sort of interesting is that if I was marketing towards Valentine's Day, even if let's say I don't like wine, I understand that wine is a big part of Valentine's Day. And a lot of couples will drink a bottle together, a champagne if they get engaged, or this is the anniversary of when they got engaged, or this is their wedding anniversary, or, they just want to celebrate their use of being together. Champagne is like, which is what I understand a brut to be, is like one of the best options available. And she did not do a darn thing with it. And it just like boggles the mind that the chocolate and the wine that should have been put together. And I don't understand why she didn't have a solid red available for Valentine's Day. Now maybe that's if you're somebody who knows wine, please let me know because I don't know. But I would imagine like for Valentine's Day, like a good solid red wine, like a I want to try to I want to it's Cabernet, and I'm trying to think of names. I can't think of it. Anyways, like a Cabernet or something. Like I would think that red wine would be a great option for a Valentine's Day. Like uh Carol says a Burgundy here. Gretchen says white wines are more popular right now. So yeah, and like where's the wine? Where's the pairing of the wine with the food? She hasn't done any of this. And Merlot, that's another one. Again, I don't know my wines. There's a part of me that wants to be like fancy enough to know my wines. And then I attempt to drink and I drink too quickly. And so I can't really enjoy it. Like, I know that you're supposed to savor the flavor. It's supposed to enhance the flavor of food. Like, I totally understand the purpose of it. And like, I think that's super cool, but I am not good at it. So I'm like, I just drink too quickly. Like, I actually won a contest once for being the fastest to drink water. It was like a New Year's Eve contest at a church function, and we were like drinking water from like this bottle or something, some sort of like youth group competition, and I won that thing. So, which reminds me, I'm thirsty, which is why I have apparently these have been dubbed now by men the emotional support water bottle. I have my emotional support water bottle. And so, anyways, I found that to be really cool, but it's so weird to me that it would be such an obvious angle, and she didn't take it. She hasn't taken any of the obvious angles, and that the wine seems dead because when did she launched the champagne? What was it? Christmas time? It's dead. I'd be so curious, guys, to know, or Meghan, if she really thought that this year would go as badly as it has. I'm just curious. And I will say as well, when I pointed out that the as ever combination of the chocolate and spread was actually $3 more expensive than it should have been, she has actually taken that completely off the page, by the way. That is not everything else that she sold is, has the sold out thing from the chocolate bars. But the one that's mixed with the raspberry spread, she totally took off because, yeah, she was kind of cheating people out of $3, which I think is very, very tacky. But anyways, we know so much of this stuff is in stock. And she's done really, you could say, because guys, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. So we don't even have the official Valentine's Day yet. And she's done, I want to say 3 different launches at this point. So we had beginning with these trio spreads, which I'm like, why? Who wants that much of raspberry spread or strawberry spread? Like, who wants that much? I don't know. And returning of the useless keepsake packaging for the single jars. And then the second one was these sets. And she had no, there were 4 because she came out with the Valentine's Day edit first. And then she introduced the Sweetheart bundle. So that was 3. And then 4 now is these other bundles. So that's a lot, I feel like, and that nothing even connects very well. None of them connect very well. Like the first time it seemed, let's say, kind of planned with the red and the chocolate, but the Sweetheart bundle I think was last minute, and I think these other bundles are sort of last minute. And she's trying to figure out how to move product, and product is just simply not moving. And I imagine she is freaking out about that because I think they've invested a lot of money in this premise, and it's probably just incredibly taxing, and like they're having to warehouse it. They can't get people to buy. Because again, when I saw what I saw in January, she was moving about 200 products a day, which is not horrible, but the amount of stock she had would take her 7 years to get through. If you're moving 200 products a day and you have stock for just a year, I would find that to be sort of okay. When you have stock for 7+ years, and in some cases close to 9 to 10 years, based on the average moving of a product in a day, that's a massive amount. And it's not even, yes, these are expensive, of course. And I know some people go, well, people just don't like her, so they won't buy. I do understand that. But the thing is, Meghan has every opportunity in the world to market these so that anybody and everybody wants to buy. But what I see constantly is that she's just basically relying on her fans. She's not actually trying to generate a identity, a brand, a market. Again, you have to look at Sydney Sweeney and Siren. That is a well-oiled machine already. And it started out as a well-oiled machine. So I may do a video like comparing them, but when I ordered Meghan Markle stuff the first time, if you remember, I ordered it, it came out on the 1st of April. I didn't get my product until I want to say it was April 10th, 11th or something. And the only reason I knew it had finally been delivered, might have even been earlier than that, because I want to say it was in March. But the time that it finally was delivered, it actually sat out in the box overnight in the rain because they had given me the wrong tracking number. So it took them, I want to say, a solid week to actually package my products. Took another week for it to actually get to me. And the tracking number was bad. And so the stuff was delivered without my notification because I'd been watching it because I had flown to London. And so I was like, trying to make sure, my sister or whatever, or my parents could, or my friend could bring it into the house for me so that it's not sitting outside. And so like, I kept waiting and waiting, and I finally checked my Ring camera, and that's when I saw it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it had been sitting out all night. And number one, that annoyed me because it's like, it makes my house look vulnerable, which I don't like. But number two, this is food products. It cannot sit out in the rain. But when it came to Siren and Sydney Sweeney, it was my products were packaged and shipped on the same day. And this was the second launch. So you have a company that's doing a big launch. And so my products were packaged and in the mail the same day. And it initially told me they were supposed to get here on Friday, and they didn't get here till Monday. But I ordered Wednesday, got my product Monday. I would argue that's a pretty good lead time. As a customer, I was satisfied with how quickly things went through. And so I thought that was great. Meghan Markle's initial product launch was very, very bad, very, very poorly executed and poorly managed. And she could have avoided that by, I think, hiring a decent team. And then we got some more stuff. So here is, and this is actually a really bad quality image here. Isn't there a video one? Anyways, so she says, sweet things are made slowly and meant to be shared. Okie dokie. Introducing the complete like, it looks so dumb when she lowercases the ever. Like, it looks so incredibly dumb. Our most generous set, bringing the full pantry together in one place. Available now with 2 additional bundles to explore. Oh my gosh, there's no period there. Please put the period there. And guys, I am not. Again, I actually had to work somewhat as a copy editor, and I'm by no means the best one ever. Please do not, like, there are people who are brilliant at copy editing. I am not one of them, but I know enough at least to put a period at the end of the sentence. And I say this, and I miss those things, guys, 100% on X and stuff. I do miss those things, but I'm also doing it myself. Meghan should have, again, the metric I'm judging her by is as somebody who has enough money to pay for a good team to make sure there are no grammatical errors or to minimize them to the best of their ability. There have been multiple grammatical errors caught within the various texts of her products and these sorts of things. Like in one case, there was like 2 ands instead of 1. And these are things that a good copy editor, like if I could, guys, I would 100% hire, like if I had my full operation together, like I would have a copy editor because I 100% miss things when I write. But this was the next thing we got, which is, guys, the shadows here. Now the text here, I would argue. Oh my gosh, and there's an extra space with the S. Oh my gosh, please. How? 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 You have millions of dollars. Guys, do you see it? Do you see this? There's an extra space here. There should be no space. I don't understand. I do I don't understand. Like, this is simple stuff. This is simple stuff. Like, this is absolutely amateur. This is amateur. And she has 882,000, but she's dropped. Oh my gosh, guys, she's almost to 881. Guys, she is totally falling off a cliff here. Like, it's very slow moving. I'll give you a pass for that. But she was at 884,000. She's almost down to 881. She's losing people on this. Valentine's Day. Okay, so she spelled that correctly. She did not spell champagne correctly, apparently. Did she even take champagne? Sometimes it will tell you if it's edited. Anyways, so extra space here. This is a horribly constructed image because you have a shadow covering half your thing. I don't know why you would do that. Okay. I would not construct, and I get annoyed, guys, like if I'm, let's say, taking a picture of something, like I have, let's say, if I wanted to share a picture of this and I was trying to, share a picture with members or whatever, and I'm trying to make sure I don't have like a shadow because I'm putting this is a postcard from like probably the Isle of Skye or something. Yeah. And so I'm like putting it on the tabletop and I'm trying to put my phone over it and the phone shadows in the way. And I get so annoyed by that. Sometimes you just have to deal, but I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyways, the shadow here is horrific. It should be brightly lit. You should be like, and again, her writing is hard to read down here with the hibiscus. You can't even see which spread she has. You can't even see the label. You can't really tell that this is hers. Like, we know it is, but this is horrifically awful thing, like horrifically bad. So there's a video now. You put the spread in the bottom and then you put hibiscus tea on top. And then you spritz it with either champagne or seltzer. And the person like picks it up and you can tell they never drink it and they just put it back down. And they should. Guys, here's the thing. If I was doing this, and I'm not like a marketing expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I would make sure to twist the champagne bottle so people could see the label. Okay, this is, we're just going to switch. This is, again, horribly, horribly done here. It's not Meghan. It looks like her assistant or something. Horribly done. But we're going to switch back to here because I think it's going to drive me nuts to keep watching that. So anyways, but this is what the As Ever Valentine's Cocktail and Mocktail inspo. And I actually thought, guys, about doing a whole video that showed me like making something like hot cocoa. And I would like put the camera up and show you like my cell phone camera or whatever. And I would explain to you how I'm making this. This weird over the top thing is just ridiculous. Again, you have to look at Jennifer Garner, Gwyneth Paltrow. What are they doing? They're either talking to the camera or actually showing the camera exactly what they're doing. Gwyneth Paltrow's in her PJs, her boyfriend breakfast. Like, why can't Meghan do that? I don't understand. So she says here, 1 teaspoon as ever jam of choice. She doesn't make jam. Meghan, you don't sell jam, honey. You don't sell jam. You don't sell it. That is not your product. As ever hibiscus tea chilled, top with as ever brut or club soda. So she'll capitalize, guys, club soda, but she won't capitalize ever. There's no reason to capitalize club soda. It's not a brand name. She doesn't even need to capitalize. Okay. So again, this comes from a little bit of doing copyright, these sorts of things. Gonna explain. So you want to have whatever you're doing, you want to have a consistency to it. So what I would do here if I was a person writing this is that the brand name should be capitalized. Why she doesn't capitalize ever, I still do not understand for the life of me because it looks super duper weird. Somebody should have talked her out of that. Oh my gosh. So anyways, so you should capitalize that. And then anything that is not a brand name or well, I guess you could say the product you're trying to use, but I don't know. I just feel like the club soda should be lowercase because she's doing garnish with mint. So why wouldn't she capitalize? And it's just a period. It's a slash. Like, what is this? There is literally no professional copy editor has looked at this, or no even person who knows how to communicate like a normal person has written this. Oh my gosh, because it's not consistent. You either capitalize mint because you're capitalizing all the ingredients, or you don't capitalize mint, so you don't capitalize club soda. You definitely shouldn't capitalize chilled because it's not like a brand name. Like, this is bad. And there's no space between tablespoon here. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Again, I have worked in communications departments. This would have been crucified. Like, it would have been red all over it to change it. Like, I would never, again, I will 100% always be honest. I miss things all the time. I have typos. I have everything in my X 150%. I have typos in my Substack. I try to switch it up. I've actually put in Grammarly. So I put my articles through Grammarly so it catches things like I don't catch, and it helps me move a bit faster. Helps my brain think a bit better. So I 100% understand typos. This is, though, riddled with typos to an audience of 882,000 people, allegedly. And we have no consistency here whatsoever in the copy. Like, it looks like she literally wrote this out on her phone, sent it to her assistant, and her assistant, in fear, did not change anything because, oh my gosh. Because there should be a space here. This is all they add. It's add 1 tablespoon. Is that even how you do tablespoon? TSP, is that how you do tablespoon? So when I put in TSP, tablespoon abbreviation should be, that's what I thought. Oh gosh, guys, she got even the acronym for tablespoon wrong. It's supposed to be TBS. TBS or TBSP. That's what I've seen too. So, oh my gosh. How do you mess up this badly? And again, like, guys, when you are in a copy editing situation, I have Writer's Digest here, so I'll just pull this up. So what you do when you're copy editing, if you don't know, so you take, or at least this is what I did. So we'll take this away real quick. I was not, honestly, guys, I didn't look that close. I can't believe how many errors are in this. Like, it is unbelievably amateur. So this is what you do if you're copy editing. Again, I've copied for like publications, stuff like that. You go literally line by line. You have something like this to keep your eyes, on the text, and so that you can see and look for extra spaces. You can look for typos. You can look for these sorts of things. And it's not that things, of course, always slip through. They always do. Actually, I was really annoyed because in my graduate thesis, there's like a boo-boo on like the first or second page. I think I spelled the TEH or something like that. I'm like, I looked at this, the first thing, and this like had been printed and everything. And it's like, how did me and my graduate advisor and the other people who read this did not catch this typo? That was annoying. But this level is absurd for a professional business. This is embarrassing. She has every resource in the world to correctly know. And this shows you how much of a cook she is not, that she can't even do the tablespoon correctly. And I'm not even a cook, and I knew that. I was like, that just feels wrong. Okay, so there should be a space there. So this should be, in my opinion, this should be lowercased because I don't think it should be. And then mocktail, I don't understand why we're capitalizing the W here or the juice here. Because again, we're not capitalizing the mint here. So it's wildly inconsistent. And so add as ever brute, and then club soda should be lowercase. Sparkling cider should be lowercase, I think. And then top it with a splash of ginger beer. Like, I understand she's trying to make the ingredients stand out. I just don't think she's consistent with it enough. And honestly, it just feels weird. Just lowercase it. That way, the as ever stands out more. Unless it's her actual products. That'd be my thought. Strawberry fizz. Add 1 teaspoon strawberry spread to coupe. Top with as ever brute or sparkling cider and stir. And I gotta wonder, like, so you can put any as ever quote unquote jam, even though it's spread in your thing. Does it taste good? Does any of this taste good? Kelly, this is horrible. This is horrible. My goodness. My goodness. Like, the amount of this is riddled with errors. And she did originally have champagne, and actually, did she take it out? I think she did take it out because she had spelled it wrong. Well, Megan, you got a lot of other mistakes here too that you need to fix that you haven't fixed yet. I don't think any of this is wrong to analyze because she's showing it to the world. And there's no reason why at all you shouldn't be able to figure out how to fix this. But everything in 2026 to me seems unbelievably like amateur hour. Like, any sort of other things are gone. So see, she's not doing it favorite granola or topping. So she's not, and she's capitalizing here. One of the things I attempt to do, even in me, I have my own set of editorial standards I have for Royal News Network. So I usually tend to capitalize like royal family, which I know you're not supposed to capitalize. I like capitalizing it. I try to be as consistent in the wording as possible. I refer to Meghan as Meghan Markle. I say the Princess of Wales. Sometimes I say Princess Kate, Princess, Catherine, depending on, like, if I have enough space in the title to put like the full name. It all depends. But you need to have, and Meghan should 100% have, an absolute standard of copy when she's posting things. She needs to have a standard on Instagram. Because you should know, because you don't capitalize the E in as ever, that you shouldn't capitalize it there. But you do, because she doesn't follow her own guidelines. It's sort of crazy when you think about it. I was just going to see if we had any other, let's say, ingredients when she attempts to show us how to make things. And this is the other problem too, is like, this is what she attempts to do, showing people how to do early morning hosting, when all she needs to do really is, like, because you got to wonder right now, is she not doing stuff because she doesn't have a crew of 50 to watch her do this kind of stuff, that she's not doing it? Like, that's the only thing I can think of. Does she ever give like her? But so going back to the wine angle, so because I was just, since we're here, I'm just curious. So we have sort of the wine kind of taking center stage here, maybe a bit here for December, but not that much. It's like, again, we do have it right here, a winter wine down. What's funny to me about Meghan is she's so interested in finding like a food pun that she completely misses actually selling the products. Stop talking about a wine down. Start talking about the benefits of your wine. How'd you make it? Why is it important? What qualities does it have that's different than what you can get at the store? What makes your wine interesting? Trying to put in these very, very, and I see the Lee Foster here mentioning shallow, but like, everything about her stuff is shallow. It's like, oh, I can say, ooh, a wind down, because or readily not, here I crumb, that she wrote on her show that she's so fascinated by these things. It's like, that's not going to sell your brands though. But I will tell you right now, from the heart, brains, and boobs of Sydney Sweeney, that'll sell a brand. Like, Tina says she's not punny. I'll leave now. That was horrible. Good job. If I had a little like cheering applause soundtrack, I would play it right now. But like to me, I love that. From the heart, brains, and boobs of Sydney Sweeney. I know exactly what that brand stands for. I have no idea what Meghan Markle's brand stands for at all. It's just absolutely crazy. I'm just curious if she posted anything today. Nah. But what do I think is going on As Ever? It could be a lot of things. We don't know the truth until the truth maybe hits us in the face. But I honestly think the brand is not doing well at all. I don't think it's selling. I think the sales have fallen. I think even though she did sell out some of those bundles and those sorts of things, the disadvantage of those, at least for the chocolates, is that she has to share the proceeds of the chocolate with somebody else. So that means she makes less money. I think she is losing interest based on the clearly horrifically awful copy editing that has been done on her Instagram. She is losing followers. And I would, again, bet you sort of bottom to dollar that for Meghan, the loss of the followers is actually the worst thing for her. Like that is probably hitting her harder than just about anything ever is the loss of the followers. That's probably just deeply, deeply upsetting to her. And that it's stalling. You can just tell it's stalling. And she hasn't come out with good products. She hasn't come out with interesting products. And again, I hesitate to always go down the route of, oh, well, people just don't like Meghan, so that's why they don't buy her stuff. And I agree with that is a portion of people. But there's a lot of other people out there who just don't care either way or would buy something if they happen to like product. But everything that she's shown is so incredibly sloppy that it makes it, I think, impossible for most people to generally have an interest in buying her products. She is not marketing and hitting anybody beyond the core people who watch Royals. And those people either love her or hate her. There is no in between. And the people who love her, I think as well, guys, my thought has been for As Ever for quite a while, is that if you are a budding influencer and you want some good, let's say, exposure, and I've actually thought about doing this just to test it out, is you get her products and you show yourself using her products and bada bing, bada boom, she's sharing you on her Instagram. And some people, I think, do that just for the exposure. They do it just for the exposure. And so they're not really engaged in the products. There's some people who will buy her products ride or die at any time for any reason. But that group is very small. And I don't think she's expanding much beyond that. And that is going to really limit her. That's really going to limit her in her future. And things aren't looking good for her and Harry, just generally in the business sense. It is not looking good. Again, we did have the report that Harry's only getting $50,000 for a speaking engagement he's doing, let's say next month or the month after that. And so he's not making much money. He's not really bringing anything. They can't sell Cookie Queens. And we'll go over the entire thing from why it's not selling, because even I think the documentarian kind of did a stupid thing and went on an interview circuit and went, yeah, no, can't sell. It's a really tough market right now. It's like, do you really want to be promoting that it's a bad market when you have something to sell? That's something you say when you don't have something to sell. And why I think that's probably not going to actually have good traction at all. And why it's obviously hasn't had good traction. And it's not just because of Harry and Meghan. It's the choices that they've made. In the business sense, neither one of them have good instincts. They constantly make the wrong choice. As Ever, it's not just a wrong choice. It's a series of bad judgments that have culminated in a brand in like a business for the two of them. It's just not working. I don't think have anything going strongly for them right now. This 2025, you could say was kind of when Meghan hit a little bit of her peak because the brand launch. She sold out, which she went on endless shows and talked about. Oh my gosh, my brand sold out. I thought, I was so surprised. We did so much research. I was like, no, you didn't. I can almost guarantee you did no research because again, comparing her to Sydney Sweeney here. So Sydney Sweeney, first collection, which was a seductress, sold out immediately. And you also got to think too, she launched it a couple weeks before Valentine's Day, very smart. So that way women and the guys who are interested in seeing the women in the lingerie can go, hey, go get the Sydney Sweeney stuff. And so the first collection sold out in a day. Great. And she launches the romance collection and relaunches a lot of the seductors collection, restocks it immediately. You know why that's important is because it connects people to your brand. Because it's like, oh, I missed out the first time. That's okay. It's coming back. And so, yes, it creates some urgency because you don't want to miss out again. But at the same time, you're not super worried that this stuff is going to go away forever and never come back. The weird thing Meghan has done is do these like weird launches and have long stretches where no product is available. And I think that turned people off, to be quite honest. Because I would be annoyed too if Sydney Sweeney's like, yep, I launched this one collection, never see any of it again. No, she's planning on keeping it in stock. But, you know, as a brand launches, it's always 100%. Guys. When a brand launches, there is a lot of interest sometimes. And the way to keep that interest, I think, continuing to grow and evolve is to keep the beast fed. So the people who missed out the first time, you're fresh in their minds. And so when it comes back and you're on the email list, you're like, yeah. But when it's 3 months later, you kind of moved on and you're kind of like, do I care? That's the thing. So I'm curious now, since we're talking about this, and I'm going to go to As Ever here real quick. I'm just going to see, guys, when the products, I can't really talk. When the products launched, when did they launch again? So it was before then. So April 2nd is when they launched. Yeah, because she probably didn't want to launch on, let's say, what was it? April Fool's. So April 2nd, they're live. And then when did we restock? June. So they restocked in June. June 20th. That's a long time, guys. That's a long time. That's 2+ months. And so people can definitely forget. Or they can just be like, well, I was kind of hyped, but then she sold out. It took her so long. Do I get invest in the products thinking that they might not be available again? So she really screwed it herself by doing it that way because she was so, I think, obsessed with the idea of selling out that she didn't think that it's not just about the selling out the one time. You got to bring all the products back in 2 weeks. You got to keep the product going because especially with something like this that could potentially be consumed rather quickly, where people are just like, well, if I order it now, I don't know if I get attached to it. I might not know if I ever get it again. And she's kind of been weird about explaining how long things are going to be in stock in these sorts of things, or she's moving in a different direction. Like nothing about the brand is clear. And I think that lack of consumer confidence is what is also killing the brand. So I think there's a lot of point working against As Ever. And it's one of those things where it's just not going to get, I don't think, a lot better, to be quite honest. I think it's going to flatline, which it already is. And I think she'll probably end up closing it before too long, to be honest. I don't know if it'll be this year, next year, these sorts of things, but it's definitely one of those ones that's just like, and that's what I thought would happen. And it would have a big spike in the beginning because yes, there was interest. People wanted to review these sorts of things. And then it sort of cratered into oblivion. And she hasn't introduced really any new products. And so like, there's no like hype, there's no interest. And everything's sort of been banal. Like none of it, I would argue, has been particularly good so far. So unless she comes out, now things could always change, guys, if she comes out with a superhero product, which is not her flour sprinkles, Meghan. Everybody hates those. You should know that by now. Everybody hates the flour sprinkles. That is not your hero product. But at some point, she may, if she develops, I think this is my theory. This is my prediction. If I was going to give one, I think what might happen for Meghan is that she's going to try it again for this next year. If she does not have a hero product by then, a product, let's say people can't get enough of, they can't keep it in stock, everybody wants it, I think she'll drop it within a year or so. I think she will, because it's too much of a drain, because you have to pay up front for the product and these sorts of things. And so she will constantly be having to pay. And if she doesn't want to pay, she doesn't want to pay shipping, and she's not even paying for things like pictures and copy edits and graphic design and these sorts of things, which are like, YouTubers pay for those things. There are people who pay just to have people who make thumbnails. I don't do that. My thumbnails are boring. I should up my thumbnail game, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But, and I like to keep mine relatively simple, because I consider myself news and commentary. So I don't want to get like too absurd or AI or anything like that, because I want to keep it grounded in that way. But there are people who have fantastic thumbnails, who I love, who are interesting. And some people who have like a very, like, it's a screen grab from the video. So it all depends. But Meghan here has completely and utterly cratered what could have been a potential home run for her. And she has nobody to blame but herself. This is all the result of Meghan's own incompetence. Nobody else is at fault. It's Meghan. And you just have to see how bad the copy is on her post to know that Meghan does not care and does not put any effort or energy behind this. Because if I was Meghan and I had that many, and I still, again, of course, just, again, general rule, not the best at copy editing, but I know enough to know when things are bad. I would hire those people so I didn't look so foolish. Because people are looking, this is the thing too, people are looking for mistakes from her all the time. And the way you don't give them something to talk about is to make sure that you do everything so well you don't give people an in. This is the same thing that's, like, I would argue that's gone wrong with the British monarchy, is that they've let Andrew fester too long. And so now Republic and everybody who's anti-monarchy is coming in because you've given them a foothold that they didn't have to have before. If they had dealt with Andrew more severely, I think even 5-6 years ago, they wouldn't be in the spot now. But they let it fester. They let it get worse. And yeah, you gave people an in. She has enough money, enough resources to avoid any embarrassing mistakes, and she allows them to happen. And that should be horrifically embarrassing for her. But she just seems to not feel it, and I don't understand why. But anyways, guys, that is, as ever, seemingly a failure, of course. But guys, we do have a couple of super chats here that came in real quick, and I wanted to make sure I got to them, because we do have Teresa Holtham, who gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Teresa. And you also gave a super chat saying, hello all, hope you are well. I am well and hope you are as well, Teresa, and everybody out there. Happy Friday, the 13th. Kind of a dark day. Carol said, gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Thank you so much, Carol. And we also gave a super chat saying, Sydney Sweeney, you oaked at the market. The nice was no one addressed the curvaceous body since the launch. It came out strong and with strong branding and products. Yeah, because let's say, if Sydney Sweeney had launched this brand and it had been an epic disaster, all people would have said is that she's boobs with no brain. She was smart enough to hire people who compensate for her inadequacies. That is what I think a good hiring manager for a brand does, is she hired people who were good enough to take her ideas, run with them, create. I'm sure maybe not all of it. It could be too that she was actually, somebody came up to her and said, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And she was like, yeah, let's do it together. And she kind of became the face of it. But she was smart enough to make sure, I think from what I can tell, that everything behind the scenes ran very, very smoothly, that she has basically no issues as far as I can tell. The next line is supposed to launch, I think, on the 17th. And like the tag for it is already kind of interesting, because I was sort of like I was like, oh, this is a different direction. So it's kind of like the Playful brand is basically kind of based more off men's clothing, sort of in a way, or men's like, kind of loungewear type of things. But it'd be like something you would steal from your boyfriend, is sort of how she phrased it. Let's see if I have it here. So yeah, she played it as oversized woven shorts, supportive bralettes, cheeky hipsters that earned the name, unisex styles meant to be shared or stolen. So I thought that was kind of interesting angle to take. But again, she's utilizing her assets to her best of her abilities and hiring people who make her look good. And bravo to her for that. All right, Beth Kid writes, thank you so much, Beth, for the super chat. And we also have John Masood. Thank you so much. He says, Madam never really took As Ever seriously, other than she foolishly thought As Ever would make her $1 billion, aka she's a buffoon. I tend to agree. I have to say, because if Meghan hadn't taken As Ever seriously, it could have been a huge global product potentially. But she didn't take it seriously. I don't think it has been well thought through. I think that's also part of the problem. Because remember, we started off with American Riviera Orchard. And because she couldn't trademark it, ended up on As Ever. I think we rushed the logo because she had to redo the logo. Like, there were so many issues with this brand, like from the jump, that it's been pretty bad. V Queenie says, at this point, and thank you so much for the super chat, she just needs to give it up. Her entire existence is based on lies and deceit, and more people are onto her. She can't fool anyone anymore unless it's a paid bot. So, I mean, there's suckers out there. There are definitely a lot of suckers out there, but I think she just never really took everything all that seriously and really tried. She just thought because she had a royal title, like that people would just buy her slop. And that's not how the real world works. You need to have, like, if Sydney Sweeney was sucked, even if she looked great in them, people wouldn't probably end up buying them. They'd move on and these sorts of things. But if her stuff's good, and I feel like people are sort of looking for Victoria's Secret's kind of passe now, but and I know there's Soma. Like, I can't think of any others. I don't know. I've been sort of partial to Victoria's Secret. I don't know why. Anyways, like, there's just not that many options. So she's like, I think, really introduced kind of I would argue somewhat a new opportunity to the market. But I don't know what Meghan is offering besides I'm a Duchess. She's not claiming her products are all organic. That's not a tag. She's not claiming that they're all sourced from California. She's not claiming anything. She's just going, oh, I want Hostess gifts. I got Hostess gifts. Who needs a Hostess gift? I still don't understand. Who gives that many Hostess gifts? All right, we have Teresa Holtum as well. Thank you so much for the super chat saying, is that blood on the wood board? Sorry, I'm blind, so I can't make it out, even though I have a little vision. In my opinion, she hasn't thought of people with eyesight. So no, she definitely hasn't. And it's not blood. It is the raspberry spread or the hibiscus, but it's just not a well-constructed image. It's no thought. And obviously, again, extra space between the apostrophe and the S. My goodness. Stephen Magnus, she corrected the brute, but still quoted TSP. Yeah, it's like, can you just try, Meghan? Like, try to care a little bit. Steven, thank you so much for the super chat. Said, first tablespoon raspberry recipe should be teaspoon. Yeah, maybe it's supposed to be teaspoon. I don't know. Either way, she just wholly messed it up and not clear. All right, Maggie Becker, P8Y, thank you so much for the super chat. Shared, I'm late. I'll play catch up later. Happy Valentine's Day, Brittany and Ms. Peppo. Why, thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you all as well. Teresa gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Thank you so much, Teresa. We also have Christina gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Thank you. That's awesome. And the Tropical Voyager said, I think Sydney Sweeney partnered with Jeff Bezos. And if she did, bravo for her. Like, maybe he might be an investor in her brand, or maybe Lauren Sanchez. I think it's a pretty good investment. Lauren Sanchez, she probably would use Sydney Sweeney's products. So yeah, good deal. Good deal. Meghan again, had Netflix, but I think Netflix is gone. I think Netflix is wholly gone from as ever. They were never, I think they were, let's say, not cautiously optimistic. That might be even too strong. But they were like, well, we'll give her a little bit of money. Her reality TV show with her and Harry did really well. We'll just give her a little money and see what happens. And then it like had a couple like blow ups and glow ups and then cratered. And then they're like, okay, that was a bad investment. Let's move on. So that's definitely a thing. All right. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of water here. So let's move on to Cookie Queens. Yes. So yes, guys, Meghan Markle and the Cookie Queens thing has gone in a rather interesting direction. And I do have to say, guys, it was even picked up by Jack Royston, which I thought was really interesting. And I thought maybe he had, let's say, an extra in or something, but he didn't. And so what I think is kind of funny is I sort of was the one who started this because I had read this article. I actually found it, if you guys remember, if you were on the members only live stream, that I was just saying, hey, has Meghan's movie Cookie Queens, has it sold yet? And I came across this article and I was like, oh, it was the director and producer of her movie, the one that she stood with at Sundance and everything. And it was talking about how poorly documentaries are selling. And I was really, let's say, shocked in a way because I was like, oh, this is risky. Because I feel like it's always risky to let people know how, let's say, bad things are right now and like kind of highlight, especially when you're trying to sell something, going, yeah, the market's not going super well for us. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting angle to take. But I think it highlights why Harry and Meghan weren't able to sell this to Netflix and why this is not selling so far. So if you are not aware how Sundance works, so Sundance is where independent creators, oftentimes independent movie producers, these sorts of things, they showcase their films. And the idea is that it's seen by a distributor. So let's say Warner Brothers, Netflix, MGM, which is Amazon now, and Paramount. We don't have that many left anymore. Disney, something like that. And the idea is that they see the movie and they're like, yes, I want to take that movie. And so they started bidding more. This actually happened with Olivia Wilde's movie that premiered there. And that there was a big bidding war that bumped up the price. And that's what you want. Something that's so good, people want to fight tooth and nail for it. And so I was curious when Meghan and Harry's documentary would be purchased by a distributor because Netflix passed. Now, I think somewhere it's like we haven't heard, let's say, officially that Netflix passed. Like Netflix hasn't said, yeah, we've seen this and we passed, but there's no other way to read it because Harry and Meghan have a first look deal. And according to the timeline that they've shared, Harry and Meghan and the producer, well, really Meghan, because this is really Meghan's project, is that though she announced her involvement in December, she actually had connected with the director first a couple of years ago and had seen some of the initial clips and features. And so Meghan and Harry, I think, my supposition is that it was pitched to them. Meghan liked it. I don't know what Harry thought because I don't think Harry has much thoughts on most things. And Harry, they sort of signed on to it, maybe gave it a little bit of money. And now they are to the point where, they kind of fully signed on as producers. There's actually a lot of producers on this movie. And so they went with the director to Sundance. I think in part because the hope was that by Harry and Meghan, that it would help this sell. And that's not what happened. That is not what has happened at all. And what she reveals, the director, in this piece is that documentaries overall aren't selling. And why do I think this is critical? Because I did have somebody in my ex, when I mentioned this, go, oh, they've just been markled. And I'm like, this is not actually about markling. This is not about people not really liking Meghan and Harry, although I don't think attaching Meghan to any product actually helps it. But what I found really interesting is that it reflects what bad judgment Harry and Meghan have as business people. Is that the director in this article is telling us how poorly documentaries are selling, and Harry and Meghan attach themselves yet again to a documentary. And it's like, okay, and the disadvantage you have with this one. Now, it's been claimed by some people who saw it that, oh, this will be such a crowd pleaser. And like, I really don't think so. But the big Achilles heel with this film is that it's not endorsed by the Girl Scouts Troops of America. And it could be, and this is just my theory, I don't know, because it sort of highlights how commercialized and, let's say, potentially exploitive it is of the girls for them to participate in cookie selling. That, the parents have to pay upfront for the boxes and these sorts of things. And so you could say the documentary does a good job of, let's say, highlighting some of the hypocrisy or the failings of the cookie program. But most critically, I would argue that the Girl Scout Troops of America, because they don't explicitly support this film, could go to the troops and I'll say, because I think that the thought is that Girl Scout troops en masse will go see this. I think that's a totally wrong suggestion because I think it'll come down from the top. Don't go see this movie. And so even if you have however many millions of girls in the Girl Scouts, I don't think the Girl Scout Troops of America will actually endorse this film nor want any of their troops to see it. Not because necessarily they're hiding it, but they don't really want to, let's say, highlight it either. And I would not be surprised if troop leaders are told, hey, you know what? This is not something to go and see as a group. And Harry and Meghan signed on to this with, I don't know if without considering that, because I would not have signed on to this without knowing that the Girl Scout Troops of America supported it, because that would be the easiest way to get butts in seats is if the organization itself endorsed it. Without that endorsement, I just don't know if there's a market for this. And market overall is very, very weak on this topic. So this is what the article says. And she says, this is the director and producer, Alyssa Namias. And it says here, even though the market is really awful right now, and it's been hard for so many of us, we can choose to feel powerless, or maybe we are powerless. But I do want to believe that things can change. So basically, yeah, nobody wants to buy a documentary. And it's really, really awful market right now for documentaries. And Harry and Meghan keep doing documentaries. There's not a market for it. There is, but it's like true crime and historical. And they talk here up above, talking about it's never over with Jeff Buckley, and says it's at best to be methodical and make sure you cover all your bases. Says which didn't close its distribution pact until several months after Sundance because of what Braun describes was a complicated deal between Magnolia Pictures and Universal. The wait certainly didn't hurt the film, as it ended up being the third highest grossing documentary at the box office last year. But when I looked up, guys, the box office numbers for this film, it was only 1.25 million or 1.5 million, something to that effect. So if you put in, let's say, 500,000 to this film, that's only a third of what was able to generate. And I don't think it's gonna make that much money. I don't think it's gonna make money. And so it was a dumb investment. It was a really dumb investment. And Meghan chose it because, oh, Girl Scouts. I did Girl Scouts. I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, look, the Girl Scouts, when I did it 1 year, that would started me on my entrepreneurial journey. And so it's like she chose it for all the exact wrong reasons. And there is not a market right now. It's not a good investment. Documentaries generally do not make a lot of money. There are exceptions to that, but they are very specific exceptions to that. This woman who directed it, Alyssa, no offense to her, but she is not, known for, like, I looked up her filmography and I never even heard of her documentaries. And I'm like, so this is who Harry and Meghan decided to like sign up with, was this woman who like she has not made anything I think anybody would have heard of. So here's her little filmography here. So director, producer, art and crimes by crimes. Visual artist Jesse Crimes navigates his life and career following a 6-year prison sentence. I mean, like these are so non-entities. There's not even a Wikipedia page for them. Unfinished Spaces maybe did the best. But like if I was investing in documentaries, and this is how I would look at it, and because documentaries are kind of hit and miss if it's not crime. If it's not crime, there's always interest. But if there's not crime, there is less. If this was the filmography I was looking at, I would not choose her because most of these I've never heard of, didn't do anything, didn't make any money, hardly had a dent in anything. Like she's not, let's say, she hasn't, won any sort of like, if you've won some big awards, it'd be listed here. Like, not really a fan of him, but I would go with Michael Moore. He's done actually good documentaries people have actually gone to the theater to see. So like, I wouldn't go with her. And maybe that's judgmental of me, but especially if I am new in this world and I, let's say, didn't have like the eye yet to see emerging talent and to invest in emerging talent, I would look at this filmography and go, no, I'm not investing in this. Maybe the one that she made is good, but she is not noted. She is not somebody who has a big footprint at all in the industry. So I was curious how old she is, but it doesn't say. So it's just an obvious thing to me that it was a bad investment from the jump. And again, nothing to do with who Harry and Meghan are or anything like that. It's just a reflection on the overall industry. And yeah, I'm sure the producer woman is there like, oh man, if I get Harry and Meghan, they'll like really help promote this. And them being attached to it will help it sell because it can't sell otherwise. But Harry and Meghan are not known for actually being able to sell things. They are not good judges. They don't have a good eye. Like you just have to see their own filmography to know they're horrible storytellers. They're horrible at it. Now, maybe they might be better investors than they are storytellers. There are those people, but those people know that they're good at that. Harry and Meghan, I think, are pretty oblivious. So, yeah. Shiloh says, not even a Wikipedia page. Yeah, there's no Wikipedia page for like if you don't have a Wikipedia page thing, that's the sign of bad things. So let's we'll move over now to a little bit more of Harry's thing, and then we'll touch on Andrew and what's going on there. But we do have Dizfan saying, loved your thoughts on the Andrew situation. Adding the Edwardian context was brilliant. Agreed. The Brits really need to move on and change up a few things. Yeah, I really do think when it comes to the reign of Queen Elizabeth, it really does, I think, reflect and echo the Edwardian age in a lot of ways. Yes, Queen Elizabeth helped modernize things, but she's, I think, very much in a lot of ways was the product of her parents' time and her grandmother's time. And I think, unfortunately, the long life of her own mother, I think, actually contributed to that as well. Her own mother lived so long. And I 100% support being supportive of a widow and these sorts of things. But I think the unfortunate reality is for the situation is that there was not an ability, there was such a reverence for the past. It wasn't able, you have to be able to kind of mix the past and the present in a way that functions. So just a little tidbit here, one of my dreams is to actually buy a really old rundown house and fix it up. And there's actually one locally in my area that I actually do have some interest in because it's actually somewhat close to civilization. But because most of the time these houses are located way out far side a big city and they're not really worth because they would cost so much to rehab. It's not really worth purchasing them. But what you have to do, I think, with those homes is mix the past and the present in a way that functions well. So you have to be able to, I think, preserve the past because there's so many cool features that you find in old houses, a lot of good woodworking and these sorts of things. So you got to preserve it, but you also have to make it functional. So a normal person can walk into the house and not thinking, oh my gosh, this is the Victorian era right now. I'm like living in the Victorian times. Like that doesn't work. I don't want to live in I have a Victorian house, but I don't want to live in the Victorian times. There is a way to, I think, mix past and present that functions well. And it takes time, I think, to figure out what that balance is. But the disadvantage of Queen Elizabeth's long life is that there was not a chance, I think, to actually make that balance. And there was such a reverence for the longness of her reign. And that was another disadvantage, that she came to the throne in the 1950s. And even Harold, who now is closing in on 90 years old, he is the king of Norway, but he's only been the king since the 90s. And so his father was reigning before that. And so you have at least somewhat a breakup and somewhat a functionality where things are sort of changing up, and so it works better. I again advocate for the long-term future of any monarchy. I think voluntary abdication in this new era is the way to go. I think voluntary abdication is the future. That's just my personal opinion. I understand why that didn't happen for Queen Elizabeth, but I actually think at the end of the day, 70 years on the throne actually did hurt the Brits in a lot of ways. I don't think they modernized fast enough. I think they're even still struggling to modernize and get out of old mindsets because that takes a while. You would almost have to, and I'm not advocating this at all because I think you need the wisdom of the past, of course, but you almost need to gut the entire palace system and reestablish it in a way. And that's not smart either. But unfortunately, because some people I think are really, you get people who are very, very entrenched in how they want things to be. But I think the long life of Queen Elizabeth was an immense blessing, but I think we've also seen now how it's sort of been a curse to them as well. So that's been a challenge for sure. And I do want to get to another bit because we saw more of Harry's little meltdown, and we won't spend too much time on Harry here, but there was one aspect of this that I really wanted to highlight because I think it's so important that this dude, no offense to him, or actually maybe a little bit of offense to him, doesn't know how real people live and doesn't understand what real justice looks like. And that he just doesn't understand these things. And it comes across so incredibly clearly here. And he talks about things. It's just like so obvious. It's like, do you not understand that in order for justice to occur, both sides get to say their piece? And yes, sometimes it's not morally great, but he acts and demonizes the defense for offering a defense of itself and for maybe citing some of the parents and, going after them in a way. But it's like, but you brought the lawsuit. So let's go ahead. And if you think about the video I shared yesterday, you'll probably get a little bit where I'm going here, but let's see this here real quick.
This is a David versus Goliath situation. I've been in some similar situations myself.
So he is not David. He is not David. He is a Goliath. So to say, I know how you feel, I've been in a David's. No, you're Goliath, Harry. You have all the power in the world, all the money in the world compared to basically anybody else on the planet. So stop with the whining. You don't know what these parents are going through. You know nothing. And your siding against the media is more about your personal vendetta than actually fighting against the system.
Vastly different. But when
you're
sitting in court, and if you have that feeling of just overwhelming emotion because you can't believe that the people on the other side are saying what they're saying.
So he complains, it's like you'll have this overwhelming emotion because of what the other side is saying. Oh my gosh. Okay. Harry, let me explain how the judicial system works. Is that there is either a prosecution or a plaintiff and the defendant / defense. And the purpose of law is to explain both sides And in order to do that, just like in any debate, guys, I did a little bit of debate in high school, and I've learned more, I think, through the process of like grad school and work and research and these sorts of things, is that the idea is that yes, there is sometimes I wish defense teams didn't do what they had to do, but also that prosecutions didn't do what they do sometimes. And they have to argue their case. And in order to argue the case, just like to debate a case, you often need to dismantle the other side's argument. And that requires sometimes very uncomfortable things. And sometimes I think that is done wrongly, and sometimes I think that's done rightly. But I think that that is how justice works. And that is an okay function of justice. Because you should be able to, if you are the defense, offer a defense of yourself. It shouldn't just be, oh, no, they're like so awful. Well, unfortunately, especially in this case, if you're not aware, is parents, and I think maybe a young adult here, suing social media companies for violating, sorry, excuse me, let me exchange my language here. Social media companies for allegedly like utilizing algorithms and these sorts of things to addict the kids and cause damage to children. That's the argument. My argument counter to that, because I am trained in a lot of ways to look for the weakness in an argument, is to go, well, what role did the parents play? Because right now, these parents, by bringing this lawsuit, expose themselves to the defense going, well, in order to defend ourselves, we have to argue in some ways of a lack of good parenting. That's what they have to argue. They have to argue, why were these parents giving these kids access to Instagram when there's 9? We safeguard the best we can, but we can't safeguard if the parents don't safeguard too. This is a give and take relationship. Again, I will argue time and time again, tell you guys time and time again. Cell phones, complex cell phones, an iPhone is for adults. Social media is made for adults. It's not made for children. If children are on it, that's the fault, I think, in some ways, of the parents. I'm sorry. That's just my personal opinion. If you think a child can't handle it or those sorts of things, it is not for children. And it should not be built and maintained and managed with a child in mind, because it's meant for adults. There are more adults than there are children. Not saying you don't protect your children. Of course you do. But I think that purview is on the shoulders of parents, not Meta. And so I think Harry is completely, I would argue, morally wrong here by just saying it's evil what, basically he's saying it's evil what these companies are doing to them, dragging them through the mud, even though they're suing. When you open yourself up to a lawsuit, yes, you will get dragged through the mud. And yes, it will be uncomfortable, because I think truths will be told sometimes. And that's uncomfortable for people. People don't like living in truth sometimes. Harry is a man filled with delusions. And I think he is not helping any of these parents, because he's basically saying, oh, the company is wrong for arguing their case. They're not wrong for arguing their case. Yes, it might be uncomfortable, but it's uncomfortable for the prosecution to unfairly characterize, or in this case, the plaintiffs, because it's a civil case. It's not a criminal case. So it technically should be called the plaintiffs. Sorry, I'm just used to saying prosecution. It's the plaintiffs. The plaintiffs, they also have, because they're arguing their case, they're going to twist everything the defense says to fit their ends. And so the process of a case is taking these things side by side. Each side gets to argue their side. And then you come to a conclusion, and a judge rules on that conclusion. And that's one of those things that's it's complicated. It's unfair. Like, I hate it when I'm watching a true crime case and the defense shoves up the most ridiculous argument possible. And especially having watched the whole documentary or show about it, that it's this dumbest angle you can possibly take. But the defense's job is to try and get their person off. Whether or not they did it, they're innocent or guilt. If you are a defense attorney, like if I was ever a defense attorney, I would want to know my person is innocent if I was fighting for them. But it shouldn't really matter. The defense's job is to try to deflect or replace blame, or actually defend and protect their charge by offering a good case. And if it doesn't go the way of the plaintiff, then in some ways, or prosecution, in some ways, that's very sad. I think of the Casey Anthony case. I 100% believe she killed her daughter. But unfortunately, that's not what the jury decided. And the prosecution did not argue their case well. The defense did a better job. And that's why she paid a defense. And that's how this system works. And in my opinion, if it does not work, if the prosecution fails and that person, perhaps was guilty, then you leave the rest to God. The rest is in God's hands. It's not in yours anymore. And Harry just does not have that perspective, it seems like. And I think his interpretation of what justice is bonkers. It's entirely self-serving to him. And I imagine the reason he's getting emotional later in this is not because of these parents. He's thinking about his own time on the stand and his own weird obsession with the media.
That by the very nature of them defending what they're defending, the lies that they are stating, is devaluing life, is devaluing your children's lives.
It's not, though. This is, again, he is twisting the defense into something purely evil. It's like they have a right to defend themselves, and they have a right to defend themselves against you bringing the case, and in some cases, bad parenting. I know some people don't like that assertion because I make it with Marius, Borg-Holmby, and Crown Princess Metamartin, these sorts of things. But you know what? Bad parenting is a thing. And I think, and it takes a lot of intention, a lot of practice. And yes, of course, there are days where there's an emergency going on in the house. Your pipes burst. You have a 2-year-old crying and you need them distracted for a little while so you can plumber. And so you maybe put Blue's Clues on. That happens. Everybody knows those particular situations. What I'm more talking about is people who always give their child, and maybe their even child has a dedicated phone or tablet, because anytime you're out, anytime you're doing anything, you give the kid the phone and the tablet to distract them. And that becomes it becomes their emotional support thing. It becomes essentially their parent. And that can lead to trouble down the line. And not saying that's what's happening here. Because yes, social media apps are addicting, but they're also not meant for children. They're not meant for children, Harry. And if parents are giving their kids access to Instagram when they're 9, you should not be surprised that they're having trouble later.
If that brings stuff up for you, it is totally normal. Yeah. Do not feel ashamed. Do not feel concerned. Even if the judge, as I heard, turned around and asked you not to show emotion.
Yes, the judge asks them not to show emotion. Why? Because it's manipulative. You have to, justice is supposed to be blind. She's supposed to weigh the evidence. That's what she's supposed to do. That is the very foundation of the judicial system. And yes, it is deeply flawed. Everything that us humans create is, because we are flawed ourselves. So it's always going to be flawed. But you have to be there, and you have to think, and you have to understand and appreciate that, yes, you have a particular side, and maybe sometimes you have to step out because you can't be in there and you want to so bad to argue your case or whatever, but it's not going to be helpful, and you have to step out. But you have to bring a case knowing that because you are bringing the case, you are also going to open yourself up to digging by other people and the defense. And the defense, if they're good, they'll dig and they'll embarrass you and they'll do all sorts of things to you. But if you didn't bring the case, that wouldn't happen. And I understand what these parents and stuff are trying to do. And, they just don't feel like they have another way. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
As I said, none of you should be here. So
I think he's getting emotional about his own time in trial. I don't think he's really getting emotional for them. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you for doing everything that you've done. Thank you for telling your stories over and over again. Truth, justice, and accountability. Those are the 3 things that will come from this.
No, he doesn't know that. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows where this case is going to go. But the defense has a right to argue it. They have a right because somebody has brought a case for them to dig through. So if you're going to bring a case to something like this, you have to know that you are going to open yourself up to criticism from the defense. You have to be prepared for that because that is a risk to take. And sometimes, yeah, that's worth the risk. But if it's not worth the risk, if it's going to be more damaging to your mental health, and you might not even win. Again, I actually hope, guys, that these families don't win. Not because I don't want, quote unquote, justice for them, but because I think for a social media company to function, it has to function to serve adults because that's what most of the population is. And if social media is going to become a parent or have to parent us, that's a disaster. That's a disaster for all of us because it will result in censorship because, oh, no, you can't learn about that. I mean, you can't even say sometimes Adolf Hitler's name on YouTube. And I just said it, so maybe I get hit. But you know what? As a historian, I would like to actually talk about those things related to him to help people understand what evil is and how you actually recognize it, how things descended in World War II into absolute, just unmitigated evil. But you have to be able to talk about things. You can't go, oh, SA, because you can't say the other words. As like, that sometimes to me, that's just silliness. That's just silliness. Yes, I understand people use Adolf Hitler's name in different ways and praise him. That is horrible and unbelievably bad. But I should also be able to say the name and educate. I think I wanted to say like Alfred Himmler or something. I was going to come up with a whole separate name because I was like, man, I don't even know if I could say his name on YouTube. And if I had a history channel and not be able to talk about history because I'd have to be careful in my language. Can't say the wrong thing. That would be bad. I can't say because sorry, I have issues because I think history is so important. And sometimes you don't get to talk about it. And they make it ridiculous. And what I will also say, and because my mom and I were talking about this, and one of the things she mentioned to me, because I was like, well, Meghan puts her kids on Instagram. My mom's like, well, to be fair, she doesn't show their faces. I'm like, that is true. But the reason Meghan puts her kids on Instagram, which makes Harry an entire hypocrite, the reason she puts her kids on Instagram is she gets more engagement from it. So she puts them on to increase engagement. So for Harry to go and get all emotional about these poor parents and their trial and all these sorts of things, it's like, Harry, your wife is actively engaging and pursuing different avenues, let's say, of engagement on Instagram by exploiting your children. That's what she's doing. It's 100% what she's doing. It's what family vloggers and influencers do all the time. They talk about their kids and have kids to increase engagement. I listened to the Dad Challenge podcast a little bit, and he talks about that. And I do think it's not in every case, but a lot of cases it is true. They have kids. They like show their kids and these sorts of stuff because there are a lot of people who genuinely want to follow somebody in their family and find comforting and fun and these sorts of things. There's a lot of creeps out there too, but people pursue these kind of programs in part because they get engagement, and kids get engagement. It's just one of those sad things, but there's also a lot of creeps out there, so be very careful. So Stephen Magnus says Harry blaming Instagram that his wife posts his kids. Yeah. It's Harry's just a total hypocrite here. I understand to a certain extent Meghan and Harry sharing their kids in some ways because they make such a big fuss over them. But I find people who genuinely want their work to speak for itself don't really talk about their kids. They talk about other things, but they don't really talk about their kids. Why? Because their kids are private. They genuinely believe in the privacy of their children, and so they don't talk about them. And I want to see Bravo. A lot of celebrities do this. Thinking of Margot Robbie, she's on a big tour for Wuthering Heights. I don't think she's talked about her son much. Amanda Seyfried, I think she'll talk about her kids a little bit, but that's not most of what she talks about. Or Jennifer Lawrence or Emma Stone. She has children or a child. Can't remember. But they don't make it a big part of their promotional pushes to talk about their children. They don't put their children out there. because their children are private. Does that mean the paparazzi gets a picture from time to time? Yes. But are they actively utilizing their children to promote their products? No. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. All right, Carol, thank you so much for the super chat. Said Harry doesn't understand what true intentional parenting is. The parents are accountable for their actions. Harry has used his traumas against people. Harry has never been accountable for his actions. Exactly. I'm not trying to blame the parents, but I also think it's helpful for other parents. I'm not a parent, but I know that being an intentional parent, because my mom was one, means a lot of work. And if she was raising us in the social media age, she would be all over monitoring anything related to social media. She would not have us on social media until maybe we're 16 or something. And even if we were trying to get around that, she was a very intentional parent. Does that mean she caught everything? No. But that means she took parenting of us very seriously. She would monitor what we were looking at on the internet. She would just keep track of things. And she was a very, very involved parent, and I praise her a lot for that. And in this social media age, that is harder. Some people put their kids on social media a lot, some people don't. And I do think there's like some people I see every once in a while. I'm like, you're posting about your kids a lot. Do you know who's watching your profile? Do you know who all your friends are? Like, that is something to think about. But other people are like, yeah, we'll show our kids, but not that much. Sorry, I think my internet is squirrely again. But yeah, Harry doesn't know what accountability is. And parenting is accountability. And remember, in the CBS interview, Harry and Meghan talked about like, well, do you know what your child is doing? And I want to say the child was like, between 6 and 10. Do you know what your child is doing in the next room on their iPad? No, Harry, my big question is, why is a child on an iPad in a room alone? Why is a child like on an iPad alone in a room that you are not supervising as a parent? Because you don't know, even with all the parental controls in the world, things get passed. And so, do you know? I don't know. Desert Mermaid, thank you so much for the super chat. Said, isn't that event Meghan went to with Emma Grede a pay to play? She only shows up when there is a benefit for her, i.e. invites to events in the future. Yeah, probably. And it's sort of a DEI event saying that it's a pledge gala asking businesses to save 15% of their shelf space for Black-owned businesses. And obviously, I have zero issue at all with Black-owned businesses, being 50 to 60% of the products in the store. But I am all for it being merit-based, because there's certain communities in the country where, yeah, a lot of the products will be Black-owned businesses because that's the community it's catering to, because that's the majority of the community. And other spaces, so an interesting thought is I grew up, at least part of my childhood, in the Pacific Northwest. Very, very white out there. Very white. It would be weird to have a salon that caters to African American hair, because there were only like 2 families in the whole community. And not that I'm sure it was harder for them to find care for their hair. Hopefully they were able to easily find it. I just mentioned that because it wouldn't have made sense to open a big salon because there's so few people to cater to. Some of it just comes down to simple business and what you can make. So I don't know about the event, but Emma Grede, and I think most anybody else who interacts with Meghan, like Emma Grede, has to know that Meghan Markle as a business person sucks. She has to know it. She's not an idiot. But Meghan is useful. She's sort of a useful stooge. So Emma Grede is like, I got this event. Meghan's an African-American woman. Wherever she goes, yes, press does fall. Yeah, a lot of it's negative, but I want more people to know about this event. So I drag Meghan there. I let her go there. And yeah, maybe I force her to give a little money so I can make it worth it. That would just be a bit of my headcanon there. And so Meghan goes. And Emma Grede is like, yay, Meghan, smile, smile. She doesn't care. There was actually sort of interesting and I forgot to mention this on the documentary section. I wish I'd remembered, but I just watched the Armchair Expert interview with Dax Shepard and Kaylee Cuoco, because I'd seen a couple of clips and I liked her on The Big Bang Theory and on 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. That was a great show before the sad passing of John Ritter. But she was talking about how bad the industry is right now and how difficult it is actually to find work and good projects. And I thought that was really interesting. So Harry and Meghan came into an industry that was kind of at its peak there for a hot second, and they signed, and the overall entertainment industry is cratering. And Kaylee Cuoco, would I argue, let's say she's a like Meryl Streep level actress? No, but actually she's a pretty good actress, and she's struggling to find good projects. She's struggling to find work, and she's struggling to find things that she likes. And so the entire industry that it has changed again shows how poorly Harry and Meghan, I think, thought through their Hollywood jump. They just thought it would be awesome sailing, and it's just not. Even people who I would argue have a good, let's say, solid history, solid acting credentials. Like, she's very good comedic wise. And so that she even has all these skill sets and still struggling to find decent projects, I think is quite telling. So let's go ahead and move on here a little bit to some of what's going on with Andrew. Oh man, oh man. So I will say overall that, and we can talk about the Epstein thing in general, is that, and obviously we've talked a lot about other things, but I think the whole belief here that Andrew is going to testify and give anybody anything useful is just absolute insanity. It's like, he's not going to give you anything useful. He's just going to cover his own butt. Like, why do you think like, unless you give him truth serum, why do you think he's going to go up there and like spill his guts about Epstein and everything you knew? That's just not going to happen. So in regard to bringing him before to testify, you can of course do that. I just don't think you'll get anything like useful out of him. But I think the biggest thing that could sink Andrew is more stuff related to his status as a trade envoy than it is in trafficking. Although we do have this article here talking about how Epstein victim was invited to Buckingham Palace and was called Mrs. Windsor. So he liked to have young women visit royal residence at royal residence, is reported. And this is obviously troubling. The problem with the Epstein case is you have to wonder, if they had all this evidence, why didn't they prosecute anybody really except for Epstein himself? And the question I have for Andrew here, and when he may or may not answer, and of course when he would answer to his benefit, so there's no, in some ways, real reason to ask him. But Andrew here is like, the question is, did he know they were being trafficked? Did they volunteer? Like, because some women are more than willing in some ways to, let's say, develop some sort of sugar baby type relationship with, Andrew as their sugar daddy. It's entirely possible. So I think the question here is like, how often, because what I seem to see, and this again is just me, is that some facets of this, I think, were Epstein targeted and found women, young women, who in some ways, I think some of them were more than willing to take part in some of these shenanigans if it got them money and got them ahead. There will always be those people. Are there actual victims as well? Yes. Yes. Both can exist. Both can exist at the same time. And are there some people who maybe voluntarily went along with some of this for a while and now regret it and are claiming victim status? Absolutely. Can you determine what they were at the time? No, that I think would be kind of hard to prove, unless they had a diary or some sort, or they were totally willing to go and slip through their things. So this is going to always be complicated. This is also, it reminds me a bit of the Marius case. So watching the Marius case, some of the big problem that's going to exist for a prosecution of him is that most of the encounters he had. So the Marius Borg-Holmby, as a reminder, is the son of the Crown Princess of Norway. He has been alleged to sexually assaulted multiple women. And oftentimes he would do this when they were asleep. And what has come out through this whole situation is that he basically admitted to it on the stand, is he sort of had this belief, which I think is totally erroneous and inappropriate, that even if the women, let's say, were asleep, if they agreed to sleep with him once, they agreed to basically whatever he wanted to do within the time they were quote unquote together. So if they had a consensual sexual encounter and fell asleep, he felt the right that he could get his rocks off and violate them, even though they were asleep because they consented the initial time, which I think is complete hogwash. But that is one of the complex things about his case is that the women did consent to an interaction. And how to read it? It's one of those things where, and again, people want all this stuff to be black and white. And I honestly wish some of this case was a little bit more black and white, to be honest. But it's just one of those things where it's just going to be an absolute mess. It's going to be an absolute mess. And it's going to be one of those things that's complicated and these sorts of things. And so it's very, the reason it's been so hard to prosecute is that there is no smoking gun here. There's a lot of morally nefarious things. But I think if we had a smoking gun, hard evidence, these sorts of things, we would have seen a prosecution beyond Jeffrey Epstein at this point. We just don't really have any of that. And the desire is to crucify Andrew. I'm completely willing to say he is a perv and an awful person, most likely. But beyond that, you know, again, going back to the idea of justice, justice exists for a reason. It's not a mob justice, because mob justice, you know, you just have to look at something like the French Revolution to see how badly that can go. Or the witch trials. You know, you're innocent if you live after we set up a situation that's most likely going to kill you, but you're guilty if we tried to kill you basically by drowning you and you somehow survived, then you're guilty, but you're innocent if you died. Like, that's idiotic. That is nonsensical. And so, like, that's what I feel like we get into some of the realm of this here, is that it's like, it's kangaroo court, it's, you know, witch hunt, all these sorts of things. And justice must be served and it must go through the court. Otherwise, it's just chaos and it lacks what makes, I think, the Western system, which is law and order. You have to have law and order, regardless of how terrible the people are. The law and order has to exist to be above everything. So that way you can have faith and in the system. And yes, the system is faulty. It fails all the time, these sorts of things. But I will always advocate for a system that is that people are prosecuted based on their guilt before the law, and that they went through a trial and it was proven, not just, oh, I read a couple emails, oh, Andrew's guilty of this. I've seen a lot of that, and I just find that a bit distasteful personally, because we don't know everything. We don't know half of the conversations. We're only getting one portion of it, and that's difficult to make a full conclusion. And yes, we will still get to, hopefully one day, I need to start printing it out and getting it all organized again, looking through all the emails related to Crown Princess Meghan Markle, because yes, we're only getting part of the picture, but I really want to look at the whole timeline and these sorts of things and what we're going to get. But Andrew, at this point, will he testify? He may be forced to finally to. Will you get the answers you want? No, I still don't think anybody will get the answers that they want. Will, I think sometimes like that he might get on sharing confidential information. Will that probably get him? Probably. I think would be less likely some of the trafficking stuff to get him. That's just my thought there. We also had the upcoming incident that it's kind of been revealed that, or Charles attempted to argue against it, but that the Queen and the estate of Prince Philip loaned Andrew the money to close out his civil case against Virginia Giuffre. Again, a lot of people pay to get out of civil cases because that's just easier. And I think it's unfortunate that Queen Elizabeth spent her money to do this. She should have just waited on Andrew. And yes, I understand that Andrew didn't want to, and well, more Charles didn't want Andrew's trial overshadowing the Queen's Jubilee, because I think that would have been a mess. It would have been an absolute mess. But now we have this situation. Is this any better? Is this any better? I don't know. This is a mess. This has been, though, decades in the making. And unfortunately, it is falling on Charles's lap. And I just don't think Charles is doing enough, to be quite honest. So if we do go back here, So this is one of those things where I just think it's a little bit dumb. So one of the founding partners of Earthshot apparently was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein's, but like honestly, who wasn't? And so like Republic is like, of course, it's like investigate Williams, charity because oh my gosh, this guy donated. Do you know how many charities Bill Gates has donated to? Hundreds, I am sure. Are all of them supposed to give the money back? No, that would be impossible and a bit silly. And again, everything becomes so heightened. And of course, this I think it's a sheikh or emir uh, said some things that are unpleasant or sultan in this case. And I think in some ways, like people like him just get on the board of a charity like Williams just because it's good. But I think it's like Azimuth is here. That's reaching Republic. It is. It is that somehow like William should be embarrassed or something. It's like, but bad people like donate to charity like all the time. So this is not like a earth shattering issue. So, anyways, that is what we have today. So I would argue William here, I don't think should bear any guilt. Like, how is he supposed to know this? Again, Bill Gates has donated numerous times to different things. And the reality is, I can't remember if I said this on a live stream or just to my mom. When it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, the reality is people at the top, power corrupts you. Power does. Anybody telling you, oh, if I was up at the top, I would never do that. Lying. They're lying. They would all be tempted and a good chunk of them would probably do the exact same thing. Or they just wouldn't care enough to know what the truth is. We judge because we're not them. And, some of it comes from jealousy of people wanting to be them. But the reality is power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And there's no way to avoid corruption in the system, pretty much. You can do the best you can, but it still exists. Actually, somebody was talking about how Norway, sort of their big challenge here is that they thought they were pretty good about not, having corruption in their government. And then they found a whole crap ton of people were involved in Jeffrey Epstein. And it's kind of like broken their brains a little bit. And yeah, it's hard. You want the people who are enacting laws, enacting policies, changing the world, all these sorts of things. You want them to be doing their best. But power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. I actually think when you look back at royalty, especially royals that had absolute power, kings and queens, they tend to go kind of crazy. It tended to, I think some of them were quite smart, but I honestly think having that much power broke their brains because I just don't think we had the mental capacity to do it because they would be constantly paranoid and terrified of usurpers and these sorts of things and constantly doing that sort of thing. And when it comes to, I see somebody mentioning Hollywood. Yeah. All of them knew what not Jeffrey Epstein. They all knew what Harvey Weinstein was doing. They all knew it. Like there were whispers, talks, chats. Again, I will always say, I heard about Harvey Weinstein being the kind of the gross guy we know he is now. I heard about that when Cressida Bonus did a movie with him way back in the day, years before the story broke. People were joking about it on Royal Dish and wondering how she got the part. And so these people, when they want power, when they want money, when it's all about that, they will look past any moral failings. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of life we have to deal with. And anybody else telling you right now on a moral crusade, telling you they would do better, they're lying. So anyways, guys, that is all I got for today. But we got a smidge of time. So if anybody has some last minute questions here, let me know it. And we'll wrap up here before too long because honestly, my voice is getting a little, like my throat is getting scratchy because we talk so much. So let me take a quick sip. I will probably have a hot chocolate after we're done. Seabass says Meryl Streep called him God. Harvey Weinstein, yes, she did. And they all knew it. Guys, they all knew what this guy was doing and did nothing because he was helping them win awards. And that's all they really cared about. It's just sad reality of life. And sometimes the more you can accept the things you cannot change, I think sometimes the better off you are in some ways. yes, of course, prosecute bad people and everything like that. But you have to accept that there is corruption in the world, and you just have to, like, it's like in the US politics system. Do I like everything every candidate says? No, of course not. But am I forced to choose someone? Yeah, and I choose the lesser of two evils, and I know I do that every single time, and I just hope I choose right. And it's not always a good thing. Ella says, "Do you think Andrew will go to prison?" He definitely might. He definitely might go to prison. And I mean, I think Charles is good to kind of get him out of the way and on Sandringham. I almost think he should leave the country, but Elizabeth says she could have had the kids make Valentine's Day cupcakes with flour sprinkles and thumbprint, cookie hearts with the jam, champagne with chocolate is another good combo. Very true. She just doesn't think. Honestly, Meghan just does not think and does not know how to advertise for her brand. It's quite startling. Because again, she could hire people to do that for her. Tina said, that's when I lost all respect for Meryl Streep. Calling that piece of garbage, my God, rethink your moral compass, Meryl. Yeah, a lot of them have really compromised moral compasses. They do. They do. Heather says house arrest is my bet. Yeah, that definitely could be a possibility. Lillian Gideon says a Galentine's Tea Party would have worked. Yeah, that I don't know why Meghan didn't go with that angle. That was a much better angle than what she ended up with. Because there is nothing romantic about any of her products except for maybe the wine and chocolate. Maybe. Marjorie says, I think Andrew will end up in Dubai or Saudi Arabia out of the way. Kind of like King Juan Carlos. So he's kind of running away from potential prosecution by hanging out in Abu Dhabi. Elena Lama says, you are so bright, Brittany. Power corrupts everyone every time. It does. It does. Blue Slade, his prison will be a nice one. Yeah. Clifford said they all turn into the other side. And, you know, I will be fair. There's people who don't, but they are in the minority. A lot of people do, especially those who, Meghan would be one of those people who I would always think would go down the dark path because she's so motivated by money and greed. I think those type of people especially are really susceptible because they're just going wherever the power is, who can give them more money and influence and these sorts of things. And so they will look the other way when they shouldn't because of that. Paul said Andrew will get away with it. He may. Dr. K facts are better than fiction. Charles becomes sicker, abdicate, or final injection. Who knows? But his grandfather took the poke. Andy is off to Qatar. Julie says, never understood what the fuss was about Meryl. I haven't seen her in too many things, to be honest. Lynn Gideon says, the UK has territory in Antarctica. Send Andrew there. Ellen Morgan says, I think it's wrong of you to paint the world as inhabited only by people who are corruptible. That may not be what you were trying to express. If not, hopefully, then you need to go back. A-B. So what I am trying to get across is that people in power, when you have power, you are corruptible. You are susceptible to corruption like we all are. To err is human, to sin is human. So that will always be and not saying that there's not good people in the world, not saying that there's not good leaders in the world, but power corrupts. Power absolutely corrupts. And yeah, actually, really, we are in a world that is corruptible. Why? Because we're all sinful beings. We all lie. We all cheat sometimes and steal. We all try not to. Like, I try really hard not to, but the temptation is there. The temptation is always there. And some people are able to avoid the temptation more than most. But, we live in a fallen world. And people, quote unquote, try their best, but it fails every single time. It always does. And that is the reality of living in a sinful world. It is what it is. Our world is broken in a way. And it will never be fixed until God returns. Or Jesus returns. That's what I believe. And I've seen that bear out throughout history. It's not wrong. You just have to read through history now. Oh, it's people who are corruptible, who are flawed, deeply flawed. Some more than others, but flaws exist in us all. So that's impossible to get away from. Princess Goose says she also thinks she's above everyone. Very true. Clifford says she does not have any talent. It shows that she has nothing original. Exactly. Dr. K. Facts better than fiction. Andy, prison, no, get real. Lizzie B says, remember to hit the like button for this afternoon tea live stream. Blue Sage says, yes. And Princess Goose says, Meryl's an awesome actress, but not an awesome person. She admitted through jokes she knew what he was and did nothing. Yeah. Because he got her awards. It's simple as that. Barbara says, there was a poll on the top 5 things people want and don't want for Valentine's. Choco made the don't want as their flowers. Interesting. Red says, I'll bet the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi is waiting for Andrew in his new shiny palace. They will take care of him for sure. Could be. Marjorie says, King Charles III, he could always send Andrew to the Falkland Islands, but that's not fair to them. Adrian says, TMZ is the devil. Anyone coming to you is not legitimate. The letter sounds absolutely bonkers. So we're talking, that would be about the Nancy Guthrie case, which is horrifically awful. And yeah, I get TMZ is starting to skeeve me out a bit because it's like, and this is the issue I've always had with journalism, which is why I've always really struggled with the idea of I should have done journalism because I loved watching the news. Like ever since I was a kid, I enjoy the news, which sounds weird. But what I've never liked about certain aspects of the news is the willingness to quote unquote get the story and exploit something for publicity. And the more the letters come in, the more it becomes apparent to me, at least. And it could be totally legitimate, but it honestly looks like to me, the person even sending the stuff to TMZ is getting off on them sharing it, and they're getting off on sharing it because it's like clicks and interest and ooh and ah, and just ugly to me. Steven says the ones who really give their money to charity, you never hear about it. Like people who refuse to own patents for inventions to help mankind. Very true. Jim says this is 100% corruptible world. Yes, it is. Lynn Gideon says there are people that do the wrong things for the right reasons. It's still wrong. Yeah. And sometimes they have to do those things for good reasons. It's like the world is so unbelievably gray. There are very few black and white cases. I wish there were more in some ways. Eileen Bradley says corruption only sucks when you're broke. Otherwise, it's great, basically. And there's some truth there. Francisco says Meryl Streep was good in The Deer Hunter, Sophie's Choice, Silkwood. I personally like her earlier work. Clifford says he can go to the Outer Hebrides, very remote. Adrian says, I can't believe TMZ is entering this. Are they in the chat? Barbara says there was a poll done. Oh, yeah. We did that one. Paul says, Harry and Meghan have highlighted how corruptible charities are, including the U.S. Melly says, since when do people put jam in alcoholic drinks? That is a great question. You guys will have to let me know. I do not. And she also, it's spread. I can't believe she still keeps calling it jam. Oh, man. Marjorie says, I do believe that my grandparents' generation had much higher standards and principles. But then again, we perhaps always look at yesterday through rose-tinted glasses. Yeah. And I think sometimes things were just manifested differently. But the corruption and the brokenness was always there. It's never changed. It's always been there. But it just always shows in different ways, if that makes sense. Heather says, you are correct. Read a book. Power is the route to all evil. When you believe your own hype, you are already gone. Len Gideon says, I've told my husband to never spend money on Valentine's. Overpriced. The only thing, I got some chocolate-covered strawberries today because those are the jam. Sunny says, I really doubt any fine restaurants carry as ever mediocre wines. No. Ritz says, TMZ is sleazy. I used to have fun watching them, but no more. Yeah, it's just like, I feel like it's again, almost a symbiotic relationship between, I think, the people who are scamming TMZ and claiming this and TMZ for publicizing it. I think it's gross. I think they should stop publicizing it. I think they should get punished for publicizing it. Dr. K, facts are simple, says, sadly, you are too simplified and naive. Maybe. I don't know. I actually think I'm pretty jaded. But I read a lot of history, so that comes with the territory. PJL92668 says, I love Meryl Streep. She's an extremely strong person, as is Jane Fonda. Abu Mandana says, still thinking of you and Catherine in a single frame. That was fun. Princess Goose says, there is an article talking about how jam is the jam in alcoholic drinks. She has about 18 drinks on it. All right. Lou Lane says, well, wouldn't we all like to see something gently fade? Lynn Gideon says, there's corruption in the Bible. It says, a will to his time will never disappear. No, it's there. And it's just one of those things I mean, and we're all susceptible to it. Even people you hold in high esteem sometimes can fall. And it's always sad and worse when that happens. It happens to pastors. And like there's an element of pastors too where it like being at a pulpit preaching, like they have to battle with, challenges with narcissism because it like the pastoralship can attract narcissists. And it's just like the sad existence basically of the human condition. And it's just it is what it is. And you can change the things you can, but change the things you can, but there's some things you can't change. And that's one of the things. It's not comfortable. It's not something anybody wants, but that's just life. Steven says JP Morgan was booked first class tickets on the Titanic, but just few hours before sailing, he declined to board. But 3 rivals who opposed his creation of the Federal Reserve dived on the voyage. Strange. I mean, they couldn't have known, but it is interesting. The tides of fate. PJL says, thank you, Brittany, for being so honest. Do not see it lately. You are welcome. I like being honest. It's my natural go-to. Sarah Moose says, that dude is not a sultan. His name is Sultan. Sorry. Marjorie says, I really had to stop trusting the mainstream media. They just often press releases and do not check facts. It's all about PR and chucks. Okay, so I will be cautious with that. Here's the challenge. Like, I really hate that mainstream media has become something people can't trust, because the difference between mainstream media and, let's say, a YouTuber or these sorts of things is that mainstream media, you have to go through a lawyer's eyes. So actually, one of my reviewers when I was writing was a lawyer, and he'd go, you can't say that. Like, we're pretty positive this is true, but you can't actually say that. You need to say allegedly or reportedly or these sorts of things. And he's in my head, and I'm really glad he did those type of things. I think it's really important. And unfortunately, people gain a profile and high status on YouTube or whatever and don't have that metric and share things that are just, untrue. And it's just really unfortunate. And or they just don't have that person that goes, oh, no, hold on. You can't totally say that. You have to say allegedly or sortedly or seemingly or whatever. That is true. And so I would say take the mainstream media with a grain of salt, but know enough to know that, like, hey, they're not doing this right. They're not doing that right. These sorts of things. But sometimes it's just so, it's so hard because, yes, I know they lie. I know they misrepresent in so many things, but the danger I see with some people on YouTube and social media, and this is, beyond the royal realm and other realms as well, but royal realm too, is they're saying things that are either untrue, can't verify, spinning, very false defamatory stories as fact, and they risk defamation lawsuits for sure. And in previous times, that would have been kiboshed because you have to have facts. You have to have things in place to prevent you from stirring up and causing, I would argue, witch hunts by not having the right information, or a lawyer looking at that going, yeah, no, that's not a case. Because I was asked on Dan's show about this allegation against Andrew that he like killed somebody or something. And I'm like, no, it's like just totally not true. I was surprised even to be asked it, just because it's like, well, if they didn't investigate it, they obviously had nothing. People make false claims all the time. Like, and that's just so important. But like that would in some cases not made it to a mainstream news outlet because they're like, yeah, I got lawyers, which is what I said. It's like, yeah, they got lawyers, and the lawyers are going to go, heck to the no, you can't go with this. There's no corroborating evidence. So yeah. Lynn Giddy, not saying you don't investigate things if you get a tip. Of course, not saying that. But, Valentine Lowe, the reason the Meghan Markle bullying allegations work so well is because Valentine Lowe had to go through levels of lawyers to get those printed. He's even admitted that. Levels of lawyers to get those printed. And those not only protected the publication, it protected him, and it protected the story because it had to go through layers of verification. Lynn Gideon says, saying something and doing something can be different things. 50 Shades of Grey isn't just a book. Princess Goose said, Harvey Levin understands the legal filthiness in Hollywood. He'd taken great steps on the opposite of what Harry thinks. Probably, yeah. He's a lawyer. He knows his stuff. Azuma says self-reflection is never pretty. It's not. Isles of Shoals says, Brittany, going to watch this again. It doesn't get better than this. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Paul says the wisdom to know the difference as to what can be changed and what can't. Yeah, that's 100% it's the serenity prayer. God help me change the things I can, the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's a universal. You don't have to be Christian. You like, it's just a universal understanding of the world. I think in life, there are things you can change. There's things you can. I can't change the fact that I'm 5'6", unless I did some sort of crazy surgery. Or actually, technically 5'5.5", as according to my doctor. But I would love to be like 5'7", 5'8", like, or 5'9". Elongate my frame. Like, I would love that, but I can't change that. So it's like, it's silly for me to like think all the time, which some people do, obsess about something I can't change. Do I think about it and think, oh, that would be cool? Yeah. Do I think it would be cool to have a bigger shoe size so I could get more sale designer shoes? Like have a size 12 feet, because the size 12 feet or the size 5s are always available. It's size 7 that's harder. Like, yes, of course. But I know that's silly. Jim Doman says, have you watched Traders? It's interesting. I have not. Dr. K. Fax says, Brittany not being critical, just factual. I too read history. Good. Desert Mermaid says, Jim Dorman. What channel is that on? Gretchen says, Ronald Reagan said it best. Trust, but verify. Yes, that's a very good, very good. I always trust and verify, guys. Anytime I see a story, I have to go and see if I can find the information myself. Lynn Gideon says, I just see so much bias in the mainstream media. I should never know a reporter's opinion. Very true. And that is sad that we've lost it. It's so sad that we've lost it. Beach Girl Jack says, societal ills commonly boil down to 3 Ps: pride, pennies, and petticoats. It does. Sharon says, stand up to Dan Wooten. Yes. I mean, I think it's good to share a different perspective. That's always, I think, a good thing. Tracy Tomlin says, people are so fed up with Meghan and her BS. Very true. IGH says, Andrew Lanny is making claims that there are bodies buried on the royal estates and Andrew may be linked. Someone needs to check him. Like, you could, but I honestly don't think that's true. Paul says, to allege something about someone without evidence can be defamatory, even if you use the word allegedly. It is, but if you are... So here's the line. Because honestly, the person probably close enough right now to probably is going to be hit with a pretty big defamation lawsuit is probably Candace Owens. But because the threshold is, if you've been paying attention to that case at all, is that what actually has potentially harmed the future of Candace's defense, potentially, because it's not only that you say something wrong, you have to say it maliciously, and you have to say it with even but also if you say it knowing that there's alternative information out there. So for example, in the case of Candace Owens, this one is just the easiest. If Turning Point USA comes to her and says, oh, here's this, and so what you're saying about X is wrong, and she goes and continues to go on that story, she's actually making their defamation case stronger. So there's kind of 2 things working there. It has to be malicious, like you're making things up maliciously, and you can prove that it has malicious intent, so intent to harm. Or if you are shown facts that prove contrary to your allegation, the Brigitte Macron thing is another example. Brigitte Macron. Candace was allegedly shown information that showed Brigitte Macron is a woman. If she keeps going down the man track, then, it strengthens their potential defamation suit against her. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, defamation is a very real possibility. And so, like, if I say something about Harry and Meghan and go, hey, X looks bad or whatever, or Meghan's as ever business looks like it's failing, and she comes at me and let's say she sends me a document showing how successful the business is. Well, I will analyze that and still give my opinion, but I'll say, but I have received this information that says X, which is contrary to what the other information that I have is. So I'm showing you both sides. You can come to the conclusion about which one you believe. That's probably the best way to do it. Clifford says, yes, the clickbaits cause most YouTubers to say things without checking. Exactly. Asma says, Meghan never sued Tom Bauer. That says everything about his truthfulness. I mean, I would not go that far. You'll notice that she has never sued a book. She has only sued, and the threshold for defamation in the UK and US is very different. Again, you have malicious intent in the United States, and you have that you were shown evidence to the contrary and you still went with the nefarious. It's actually very hard in the United States to win a defamation case. Exceedingly hard to win a defamation case here. And I think that's somewhat good because if, you know, there are cases where people make allegations and they're told they're wrong and, you know, they're fought against and it turns out they're true. So I think that's okay. But I wouldn't say that it definitively proves, because she hasn't sued Lady C. She hasn't sued other people who have written books. And I just don't think it necessarily is just because it's all true. In some cases, I think it benefits her to not sue, because then like Tom Bauer would get to do discovery and she would hate that, even if she wins some. Gretchen says, I love Lady C. She often prefaces comments about Meghan Markle by saying, daring Meghan Markle to sue her. I mean, depending on what it is, it could actually be a risk. Stating allegedly is a legal myth. I mean, you do. That's why people do it though a lot. Clifford said he did. Even Tom Bauer makes sure that what he writes is watertight. Yeah, and it goes through lawyers. That's why publications are often good, because they do go through lawyers. But you know, Harry's book went through a lawyer and it's still published, so it's not the end all be all. Amelia says here, also simple chat GPT will correct the grammar. That is true. If I had put that bit of Meghan's through Grammarly, it would have caught all the mistakes. It's crazy. So we will sort of wrap up here. Azima says, Johnny Depp did win his defamation case. He did. He won the US one. And that is pretty hard. And he had to be, you know, get on the stand. Kate Moss had to testify. Like, it was a big deal. But he did lose his UK one, because UK threshold is much lower in a way. So I can't quite remember how that worked out. But anyways. PJL says, first book I've read in years, Revenge. Enjoyed reading it. Yeah, it was a good read. Len Gideon says, I love that frivolous lawsuit in the UK. Make the lures or pay the other side's legal fees and court costs. I 100% believe we should do that here in the US. Asma says, Tom Bauer would love to go to court. He's a lawyer. Blue Slade says, it may end up worse if she tries to sue. Yeah, that's why I think she doesn't sue. Clifford said, Candace made claims about the French first lady without proof, even though she has children. Yeah, and she's been supposedly given more proof, and that again pushes you into defamation territory. Paul says, to repeat an alleged allegation against someone from another source can still be defamatory under the repetition rule if it damages that person's reputation. Very true. I mean, it is, though, again, very hard to prove. Very, very hard to prove. Dr. K, facts are better than fiction. Lowney has no bias. Fact, sorry, he is a royalist. I don't know if I would agree so much. Clifford says the British, it is much higher thresholds. Yeah, it is. So, guys, we will go ahead and wrap that up here. A very interesting discussion here today, guys. Learned a bit more about defamation and corruption and different things. So, it has been fascinating to be with you all. And, of course, learning about Meghan Markle's endless spelling errors, or I guess grammatical errors. Copy editor errors. That is so bad. So bad. It makes my brain hurt. Like, how? How I even put my stuff through Grammarly to make sure I don't make some dumb errors. But Meghan Markle, apparently not. But yeah, she can't even the extra space. And anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful Friday and Valentine's Day. And I shall speak to you guys again very, very soon here.